hole, and Rosa Tucker's forehead bounced off the passenger window for the third time since they'd left the paved road behind. Chapter 1. The Mud and the Silence. "Sorry about that," her father said, both hands gripping the steering wheel like it might fly away. "Road's a little rough." A little rough was what her mother called the last year of their marriage. Rosa rubbed the sore spot on her temple and stared out at the endless brown hills rolling past. They had been driving for 2 days. 2 days of gas station bathrooms, fast with food wrappers, and her father's attempts at cheerful conversation about fresh starts and wide open spaces. Rosa had her earbuds in for most of it, though her phone had died somewhere in eastern Idaho, and she hadn't bothered to charge it. Now the truck was winding up a gravel road that switched back through stands of pine and aspen. The Bitterroot Mountains rose around them like walls. Rosa had looked them up before they left. The Bitterroots formed part of the border between Montana and Idaho, a jagged spine of granite and timber that went on the hundreds of miles. The pictures online had looked pretty. In person, they just looked big and lonely. "There it is," Martin Tucker said, and Rosa could hear the hope in his voice, fragile as an eggshell. The ranch sat in a narrow valley at the end of the road. There was 2-story house with a green metal roof, a barn that leaned slightly to the left, and a series of fenced paddocks where the grass had gone yellow with autumn. Beyond the buildings, the valley climbed into the meadows and then into the dark timber, and above that, bare rock and sky. Rosa's father had bought the place from a retired rancher he'd found online. 20 acres, a well, and plenty of room to breathe. Martin Tucker was a large animal veterinarian who'd spent 15 years working in a city practice, mostly treating dogs and cats, and he'd always talked about getting back to the kind of work he trained for. The divorce had given him the push or the excuse. Rosa wasn't sure which. "What do you think?" he asked, pulling up beside the house and killing the engine. Rosa looked at the mud in the driveway, the sagging fence, the absolute absence of another human being in any direction. "It's great, Dad." He heard the flatness in her voice but chose to ignore it. That was one of Martin Tucker's talents. He could walk right past a feeling like it was furniture. They unloaded the truck in silence. Rosa carried boxes to her room on the second floor, a small square with a window that looked out at the mountains. The previous owner had left wallpaper with tiny blue flowers on it. Peeling at the corners, the floor creaked with every step. She sat on her bare mattress and pulled out her phone. No signal, not even one bar. "Dad!" she yelled down the stairs. There's no cell service. There's Wi-Fi, he called back. Passwords on the router. And I got a landline hooked up. A landline? Like it was 1995. Rosa lay back on the mattress and stared at the ceiling. 3 weeks ago, she'd been in her bedroom in Portland, with her posters on the walls and her best friend Tanya 2 blocks away and her mother downstairs making pasta. Now her mother was still in Portland in a smaller apartment. And Rosa was here because the custody agreement said school year with Dad, summers and holidays with Mum, and Dad had decided to move to the actual middle of nowhere. She could hear him downstairs, opening cabinets, running water, trying to make this strange house feel like home. Rosa closed her eyes and wished she were anywhere else. The first week was the hardest. School was 30 minutes down the mountain in a town called Derby, and the bus came at 6:45 in the morning, which meant Rosa had to wake up in the dark. The school was small. Her entire 6th grade class had 22 kids, and everyone already knew everyone. They were polite to her but distant, the way people are with someone they figure won't stay long. At home, there was nothing to do. No mall, no movie theatre, no sidewalks. Her father was busy from dawn to dark, fixing fences, cleaning out the barn, driving to town for supplies. He'd already picked up 2 clients, a cattle rancher down the valley and a woman with pet llamas, and he seemed happier than Rosa had seen him in years. That made it worse somehow, like his happiness required her misery. Rosa talked to her mother every other evening on the landline, the curly cord stretching as she paced the kitchen. Her mother, who was named Diane, no, whose name was Beth, asked careful questions about school and the house, whether she was making friends. Rosa gave short answers and tried not to cry. "Give it time, sweetheart," her mum said. "You might surprise yourself." Rosa did not want to surprise herself. She wanted to go home. But home didn't exist anymore, not the way it used to. That was the thing nobody said out loud. The house in Portland was sold. Her parents were 2 separate people in 2 separate places, and Rosa was stuck in the space between them like a ball in a game she never agreed to play. So she started walking. It began as a way to kill time on the weekends, just following the dirt trails that led up from the ranch into the hills. The air was different here, thin and sharp, and it smelled like pine needles and cold water. Rosa wore her city sneakers for the first time out and came back with the mud up to her ankles. So Martin bought her a pair of proper hiking boots from the hardware store in Derby. They were stiff and ugly, but they gripped the rocky trails like they meant it. She went a little farther each day, past the upper fence line, through a stand of aspens whose leaves had turned bright gold, up a steep slope where the trees thinned out and the sky opened up, and at the top, a meadow. It was wide and flat, maybe 5 acres carpeted with a dry grass and ringed by dark pines. A creek ran through one edge, barely a trickle this late in the season. The mountains rose up on 3 sides, and to the west, Rosa could see down the valley all the way to the river, a silver thread miles away. She sat on a rock and caught her breath. The silence up here was different from the silence at the house. It wasn't empty, it was full. Wind in the grass, a hawk circling the creek whispering. Rosa didn't want to admit it, but the meadow was beautiful. She came back the next day, and the day after that. It became her place. The one spot in Montana that felt like it belonged to her. She'd sit on her rock and do homework, or just stare at the mountains and let her mind go quiet. It was on her 4th visit to the meadow that she saw a horse.